Hi everyone and welcome to today's video where we're going to be looking at Romeo and Juliet Act 1 Scene 1. In a series of video summaries we're going to look at each scene, the key quotes in each scene and the key points. So today we start with Act 1 Scene 1. We'll just go through it now quickly. So the first two people we meet are from the Capulet household and they are Samson and Gregory. Samson and Gregory are walking through the streets of Verona talking about how much they hate the Montagues. So this sets the scene and shows the hatred that exists between the two families. No one seems to know how it started, but we know that they hate each other. They see two Montague servants and think about how they can goad them into a fight without getting blamed for starting it. Now this is important because even though they want to fight with them, they don't want to be blamed for starting it because there are repercussions for those who begin fights, as we'll see later in the scene with Prince Aeschylus. Samson bites his thumb, which is an offensive gesture, and this begins the brawl. Okay, so this also shows the difference in culture between the setting of the play and the current world that we live in, where biting your thumb would not be seen as offensive, but it was in those days. If we think about different hand signals that we could use that are deemed derogatory and offensive today, which may start fights on the street, so biting the thumb was something similar. So Benvolio draws his sword in an attempt to keep the peace, but seeing this, Tybalt draws his sword, which highlights how aggressive and angry he is. Okay, so Benvolio, who was a friend of Romeo, is from the Montague household, and Tybalt is a nephew of Capulet and a cousin of Juliet. Now, it's important to note here the aggression of Tybalt and how angry he is. He's a fiery character, quick to draw his sword. So there's a bit of foreshadowing at play here by Shakespeare with Tybalt, highlighting just how quick he is to fight. The brawl ends with both Capulet and Montague on the street. Okay, they're the respective heads of each household, Capulet and Montague, and they actually want to fight with one another and are held back by their wives. Prince Aeschylus warns both families that the next person to disrupt the peace will pay with their life. Now, that's important. Again, that threat, it's a way of building tension very early on in the play. So the next person who is blamed for starting a fight or that ends up on the street will pay for it with their life. Okay, so after they all disappear, Benvolio, he stays behind with Montague and his wife where they discuss Romeo. So everyone departs, but Benvolio stays to speak to Montague and his wife. They tell him they are worried about Romeo. They ask him to find out what is wrong with him. Okay, so they tell us that Romeo, he is up all night, he sleeps all day, he's in a mood, he's not his usual self. Romeo appears and his parents depart, allowing Benvolio to ask Romeo what the matter is. Now, we see straight away from Romeo what type of character he is, because he tells Benvolio he's in love with Rosaline, but that she does not love him and has vowed never to love a man. She's taken a vow of chastity, so Romeo's love would not be returned and never will be. So straight away, you may be asked by your teacher to what is your impression of Romeo. So Romeo, he's a very emotional person. He's willing to tell his friend that he's in love with Rosaline. Okay, if you think about young boys today, would they be as willing to say that they're in love with someone? Would they tell their friends that they're heartbroken? So Romeo, he's very open. He's very emotional. So at that point, you can see that the close relationship between Benvolio and Romeo. Benvolio tells him that the only way to get over a woman is to look at more beautiful women. Romeo says there is no one more beautiful than Rosaline, but Benvolio vows to prove him wrong. So it's important here that you remember that he says there is no one more beautiful than Rosaline. Okay, so he's quite dramatic as well. He doesn't know Rosaline all that long, but says there is no one more beautiful. And also, again, you may be asked about would you like to live in the world of the text? Or the world of the play that it's set in, and very often you'll say no, and one of the reasons will be their attitude towards women. So here we see Benvolio's, he judges women solely on their looks, okay? Okay, key points from the scene. Okay, so Shakespeare uses foreshadowing cleverly in the scene by highlighting the aggression of Tybalt and his quick temper. So foreshadowing, hinting at something bad or something tense is going to happen down the line. Okay, you'll always remember from Of Mice and Men when George tells Lenny if anything goes wrong to come back to the brush. Again, it just indicates that something will go wrong. So Shakespeare does the same as Steinbeck here. He has Tybalt with his quick temper and saying that he hates the word peace as much as he hates the Montagues. So Tybalt hates peace, therefore he's going to be someone who is constantly trying to break the peace. The other thing we have to remember is that Prince Aeschylus says the next person to break the peace will forfeit with their lives. He also uses Prince Aeschylus' threat as a form of foreshadowing, as the next person to cause a riot is going to pay with their lives. The hatred between the two families has been made clear in the opening scene, and we have also witnessed Romeo's love for Rosaline, which is important in determining what type of character he is. Okay, so if you're going to say he's a dramatic character, you can explain why you think he's dramatic. If you say he's emotional, you have to explain why. So there's a lot of good evidence there to show what type of person Romeo is. Benvolio's reaction to Romeo's predicament shows the attitude towards women at the time, as they were judged based on looks alone. This is important in evaluating the attitudes of the world the characters live in. So you're going to see a very, very different world to the world we inhabit today as we go through the scenes. In fact, with Juliet, the proposal of marriage, and just how people behave is very different. And it's important to try and compare and contrast the differences and similarities you see but from Verona at this time and your world today. Key quotes from Act 1, Scene 1. Now, quotes, they're not the most important thing when you're answering a play, but it's good to remember the odd quote that backs up your point and it shows you know. Okay, so when Benvolio says the word peace, he was trying to keep the peace, Tybalt reacts. He says, I hate the word as I hate hell, all Montagues and thee. So he's saying he hates peace and he hates Montagues. It's just telling us the type of character who hates peace, someone who's quite violent, someone who wants to fight, and Tybalt is that character. He also hates the Montagues. As you'll see as we move through the scenes, he has a hatred for them. Part fools, put up your swords. You know not what you do. I do but keep the peace. So that was a precursor to Tybalt's quote. It's from Benvolio. Part fools, put up your swords. So you can say Benvolio is trying to keep the peace. Now, there is a bit of a paradox in trying to keep the peace with a sword. The visuals of it would give Tybalt the impression that he was trying to agitate for a fight rather than try to break it up. I do but keep the peace. So that was Benvolio. Love is a smoke made with the fume of sighs, and a series of kind of metaphors describing what love is. Romeo shows how love can break your heart, how love can have such a negative influence in your life as well as the positives, which we'll see later in the play. Love is a smoke made with a fume of sighs. There's a metaphor here. He's basically saying he's filled with smoke, but it's not a normal smoke, it's the fume of sighs. So he's filled with longing and sadness. He's filled with sadness because of his love for Rosaline that is not returned. It's unrequited love. If ever you disturb our streets again, your lives shall pay the forfeit of the peace. This was said by Prince Aeschylus. He is there to keep the peace. He's the ruler of Verona. So what he says goes. So he has made a very clear threat. So the audience, it's a good way of keeping the audience on their toes. So we're waiting now. Who will be the person to forfeit their lives? Who will be the person to break this peace? Okay.